Hello guys, welcome to today's show. I hope you enjoy it. We will make one of this together. It's a fairly easy to make project and it will be good window for you to start enjoying leathercraft. I will do this completely with hand and with minimum required tools, so you can definitely make one too. And to make this video more useful, I will go through some leathercraft basics. So let's dive right in. But first thing first, for every leather project you will need a pattern, but don't worry, I have that part covered. You can download the printable file down below. In the PDF file, there will be corresponding pages for each AirPods model, and pay attention to choose the right one. The only important thing right now is to print in actual size or in 100% scale, as you see I'm doing over here, like this. Alright, so let's make a copy. Right now that you have your pattern printed, choose the model based on your device. And to make sure that the scaling is correct, let's measure this 10 centimeter guide. Now for the fun part, let's pick up some leather. In technical terms, 5 to 6 ounce vegetable tan leather is great for this project, but any leather even cut from an old coat or grandma's bag will do the job. Right now I'm measuring to prevent overcuts and wasting precious leather. Here you can see the thickness of a 5 to 6 ounce leather. Now let's transfer our pattern to leather. To do this, I'm cutting out the design from paper, and in this stage, don't worry, you don't need to cut exactly on the lines. For me, an estimate of 3 mm offset works great. In this step, just be patient. Use your cutter carefully, and a square is your friend right now. Now that you have your two pieces, let's move on. There is lots of methods for transferring pattern to leather, but I'm using my favorite method to simply tape the paper pieces by masking tape. It will hold the design in place and you will see through it for cutting. As you see, it is totally transparent and we have no problem see the lines underneath. But before cutting, we need to punch every holes, and for that there is lots of different chisels and punches, but for this project I will simply use a 1 mm round punch for my stitch holes. Why we need to pre-punch our stitch holes because needle can't pierce leather by its own, as you see over here. And this is a 1mm round punch. And this is our stitch holes to punch. And for that you will need a mallet and a good plastic surface to punch on, because you don't want to damage your tool tips as they are precious. So let's punch. You need to do this with patience and think of it as a relaxing task. Make sure to don't miss a hole, because it will be hard to find after we remove our design from the leather. And for installing snap buttons later on, these holes must be punched with a 3mm round punch. These larger holes need a little bit more force with the mallet. As you know, this leather case needs a charger access hole too, and for make that you will need one of this. For cutting these small curves, you will need one of this. I think it is called a round corner punch. The size is 20mm. I'm using this because cutting these tight curves is almost impossible to do with hand. One more time, as every steps of leather craft, take your time, be patient, and make sure that the blade or the punch is at the correct position. It's a good practice to watch the back of the leather to see if the blade has cut through. I will need 2 of those corner cuts over here too. So this is our 2 pieces ready to cut. For that I'm using a simple box cutter on a cutting mat and my favorite yellow square. At this stage, be careful and take your time with the blade. Cutting out leather is not as simple as you might think. but don't worry, you will get the hang of it. Problem is, leather is sort of stretchy, and when you put pressure on your blade for cutting leather, sometimes leather stretches too. So after a while you will learn that order of cuts, angle of your blade, choosing of the right square and more has effects on the quality of your cuts. Another tip is not to try to cut every line with your square. Sometimes some cuts are better to do with just freehand. For long straight cuts, sometimes is better to use rotary cutters. Here is my favorite rotary cutter. It's not necessary to cut like this, but since I have this one, I'm using it. And the good thing about this kind of cutter is the pressure is from above and sort of help to not stretch the leather. So here is our two pieces ready to move forward. But there is some steps to do before stitching. You will need to attach the snap button at this stage. This is my snap button anvil and both of my setters. Here it is, the female one. And here it is, the male part. Now I'm gonna burnish the edges. This is a leather edge beveler, and I'm not saying that you have to use one, but it will make the finished look more professional, definitely. This tool takes up a hair at the corner of the edges and helps to make them round afterward with our burnisher. Now let's burnish our edges. This is Tokonol and it takes care of the edges beautifully. But if you're doing this at home and you don't have access to Tokonol right now, simply water will do. Just wet the edges like I'm doing with Tokonol. Now I'm gonna use my edge burnisher to burnish our edges or slick them. As I said, this makes the final look more professional and makes our edges more durable and beautiful. This step needs time too. Take your time with it. Toconol has a great smell, sort of, and it's my best friend for burnishing edges. Sometimes for tight curves, this small edge slicker is very useful. Now I know you've been waiting for stitching and finishing our projects. Stitching leather generally is done with 2 needles. First, we need a good length of leather thread. It's waxed thread. For threading our needles, there is a method. You first thread the needle. You pass the needle in the middle of the thread once and twice, so it gives you a sort of an S shape. Now just pull the thread through the needle. It will lock up the thread, and don't forget to do this for other end of your thread. And for stitching leather, most of the times we use a technique called saddle stitch or saddler stitch. First, we put our layers on top of each other, and we start with a back stitch for strength of our stitches in the beginning. Top needle goes one hole back, bottom needle goes through the same hole. Now one stitch is done. It was a back stitch. From now on we move forward. To make it more clear, movement of thread through the layers of leather will be like this. Let's move on. Top needle goes through, the bottom needle goes through. Don't forget to tighten it every time and keep this tension for consistency of your stitches. Once more, top, bottom, consistent tension. Top goes through, bottom one goes through the same hole. Again, attention. Don't worry, this will feel natural after a couple of times. For stitching better, we have a tool called a pony in leathercraft. It's just a clamp that holds the layers of the leather correctly on top of each other, and you can see stitching is more and more easy. Bottom, top, top, bottom. And for wrap it up, we will go one back stitch like the one in the beginning. The top needle goes one hole back. As you guess, the top stitch is beautiful and clean, but at the back we have two loose ends. But don't worry, just use your scissors, and because this is nylon thread, just melt down the loose ends like this. Now for attaching our sides, we will use another stitching technique called X stitch. This will goes like this. You can see it over here. We have our thread and needles. Both needles will come out from the first holes on each side. Right needle goes in the second hole at the left, and the left needle goes through the second hole at the right. Here is our X. It's beautiful, isn't it? Now at the back, on the same second holes at each side. Right needle goes through the left hole, remember. The second hole for both needle. Left needle goes through the right hole. Now we have both needles come out from the second hole in the front, ready to do another X. Right go through left, left goes through right. Just another beautiful X. At the back, one more time, at the same third hole, left goes through right, right goes through left. It doesn't matter which one goes first, just keep it consistent. And for the last one, right goes through left, left goes through right. And for finishing our stitch, we do one back stitch, back X stitch sort of. just make another X, but going backward. So right now both needles are at the back, so let's cut them and melt them with a lighter. Be careful to not burn your fingers. One side is done, and for the another side goes the same, like this. It is done. Let's test it with our AirPod. Yeah. And the snap button. And here is the two models side by side, easy like that. I really hope that you've enjoyed watching, and I am looking forward for your comments to see which route should I go for future videos. A series of tutorials from zero for beginners, or more small projects like this one. Thanks for watching. Bye.